Now I have the feeling that I have already seen everything in this life. What's your name? Does it matter? Who is he, the unbreakable warrior of Mariupol and the Azov regiment, David the Chemist? For a certain sin you get into one of the circles of hell. Relying on God or something like that is a weakness for me. The secret world of Azovstal. They couldn't seize Azovstal, they couldn't even get on the territory of the plant. Every day there were terrifying combats, aviation, artillery, so they simply chose a tactic which they used everywhere, a scorched earth tactic. Weren't you afraid at the moment when you were already taken away in captivity, that you would really be brought to Ramzan Kadyrov and that you would have to explain everything? It looks like you're a decent, educated guy. Why did you write that bullshit? We were in Mariupol. What would I be afraid of? Russian propaganda made Azov look like the greatest evil in the history. Did you understand how you were released after all of this? Glory to Ukraine, guys! We live during difficult time, but very interesting one. The history of Ukraine is being written right now, and those who create it live among us. These are the people who we went to school and university with, hung out at concerts together, saw each other at soccer games, and this video is about one of such heroes, the charismatic fighter of Azov regiment, David Kasatkin, whose military call sign is Chemist, which translates from Ukrainian as the Chemist, an unbreakable warrior of Mariupol who left his hometown only after being ordered to do so. Press subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up right away. What was the happiest day of your life? To be honest, when I get asked this, I always tell the same story. I was 9 and had chickenpox. It was winter right before the New Year, and my older sister, who was like a second mom to me, she dressed up like a Santa Claus with beard, and she made up a male voice and everything, so she brought me a gift. It was a set of soldier figures, just these small green minifigures you can play with. I just can't describe my emotions at the moment, you know. It was so cool. I even forgot about the fact that I was sick and had an awful fever. I just sat there and played with them. So this day was even better than the one when you were released from Russian captivity? Definitely. David Kasatkin, whose call sign is Chemist, the Chemist, a 25-year-old lieutenant of the Azov regiment, a native citizen of Mariupol. He got through the defense of his hometown that lasted 86 days, 82 of which were in complete encirclement, was held captive in Russian captivity. What's your name? Does it matter? What do you mean? It does matter. You'll see in the lists. At the age of 17, after the injury that he got at a boxing competition, he started powerlifting. In a short period of time, he bulked up and gained muscle. His friends didn't believe that it was possible to achieve such a result without any chemical products, steroids. That's why they started calling him the Chemist, Chemist. David uses Instagram and Telegram accounts as ironically as possible, but don't always take everything you see there literally. Russian propaganda traditionally hung a bunch of clichés on famous Ukrainian: Nazi, Satanist, drug dealer. By the way, we will get to the topic of tattoos later. Nevertheless, none of the statements that were shared by the Russians were true, not a surprising situation for any of us. During the siege of Mariupol, the Russians posed an alcoholic man as a captured Ukrainian intelligence officer who was revealing positions. I am the armed forces of Ukraine intelligence. I admit that I fought against the civilian population. To be convincing, Kadyrov forces drew a tattoo of a bat on the poor man's back. But the bat is a symbol of Russian intelligence, not Ukrainian one. During the time while he was held in Russian captivity, the Russian mass media started reporting that Chemist was no longer among the living. His heart had allegedly stopped on the way to Grozny, but this was another fake. Let's begin with how you left to surrender into the Russian captivity, how you left Azovstal. When I watched this video, I was like, are you immortal? Are you fearless? And what was all that attitude about? Kill everyone. Everyone who? Are you going to kill? These are just words of King Leonid. What's your name? Does it matter? What do you mean? It does matter. You'll see in the lists. When I left, meaning from Azovstal, by the moment my whole city had already been destroyed, so I wouldn't say something wrong. I won't frame my guys. It's because we had 600 wounded people with us, and 300 of them, due to the fact that there was no access to antibiotics, were already decomposing alive. We made the decision to go out, to surrender, so that they would be given medical assistance, because we were told that either everyone comes out or no one comes out at all. When I was looking at these people, I was just overwhelmed with this seething hatred. And probably that's the reason why in some moments I behaved like that. Now when you watch this video calmly, what are you thinking about? I just smile. What did your close ones say? Well, my friend, she was like, what is wrong with you? Are you stupid? When I was watching this video, I thought they would shoot you right on the spot. That was the reaction. I didn't understand it then, because I haven't seen it that time. I said, what video? I don't understand anything like, okay, I'll watch it later. Did Russians ever mention this video to you? Well, yes, they kind of said. They just asked me, why you have all this attitude? What that about? I said that, I don't know, I think I did nothing wrong or extra. Okay, so you have Georgian roots. Yes, you did mention that your name is Jewish, and Russian propaganda demonstrates you as a Nazi. What is wrong with this story? Well, probably the fact that I'm not some kind of a 2-meter beast, like I don't have fair hair, and probably that's it. Well, how could I promote Nazism? Yes, I do have a Jewish name, my father is Georgian, but I do not have any prerequisites for Nazism. Maybe they have some kind of their own concepts of Nazism that I and the whole world don't know about, but I definitely do not fit in this idea at all. You do not support any movements? No. You consider yourself being a Ukrainian nationalist? Yes, well, I'm a patriot. I love my country and consider myself a Ukrainian nationalist. According to James Defense Weekly, the Ukrainian Azov regiment is recognized as the most combat unit in the world. Where Azov got such unbreakable spirit from to face 86 days of the siege of Mariupol, considering such an advantage of the Russians back then? They wrote private military unit there, but we are not a private military unit. Where does this fighting spirit comes from? It was tempered even before the regiment was formed, so the backbone of this regiment were guys who were members of soccer fan crews, the football hooligans who fought with other crews and stuff like that. So in those people, in this backbone, there was already some kind of fighting spirit. At the moment when I joined the regiment, there were either active guys who had previously been into this whole soccer fan community, or some kind of specialists. By saying specialists, I mean those who already had experience in the warfare. Someone was a tank commander, a mechanic, or an artilleryman who are able to be really useful in the action, and the rest of that backbone were those warriors who had already fought during a real war and were not afraid of everything that was happening. You know, when you get into any kind of a team or group, you change completely, you become like your team. And so, when people were coming to us, a month, 3 months passed by, and they changed completely. Their style of clothes, manner of speech, perception of the world, you completely change on psychological and physiological level. For example, we had some troubles inside of the regiment after the Shirokina standoff, caused by some political disagreements. Azov almost wasn't involved in any action. Getting a chance to carry out combat missions, it was kind of like a reward for us. Going to combat missions meant that you are a cool guy in order to go. You had to earn it, it was an honor. And how did the full-scale invasion begin for you? Where were you? What were you doing? In general, I'll start with the fact that sometime before the full-scale invasion began, I was with the battalion commanding officer. There already were prerequisites for this. Already at that time, there was a live broadcast of Putin stating that he supports like the DPR and LPR. That was the moment when it became clear for all the military people. It's a 100% chance there's going to be a full-scale war. That is, weren't sure in which format it will be held, or whether it will be full-scale at all, how it will work, but back then everyone knew for sure the war will start, and it's going to be soon. I took my phone and left the room to film my mates. Everyone was already preparing, calling their families, saying things like, "Hello babe, I won't be back home yet." We are writing a fucking history right now. If we survive, people will write memoirs about us. As a joke, of course, but still, the fact is that everyone was already prepared for this war. And then, I don't remember which date it was, 21st or 22nd of February, I was with the battalion commanding officer. Initially, the idea was coastal defense. That is, our anti-amphibious landing defense is completely different. Since the beginning of the war, everything has been redone. The strategy changed from planned on to hold the enemy on the coast to the fact that we're going to hold the defense of the city. We divided the city into 4 areas. Gave one area to my battalion commanding officer, another part was also given to the commanding officer for the 1st Battalion of the Azov Regiment, a third area was given to the National Guard of Ukraine, and the last part was given to the 36th Marine Brigade. The commanding officer and I visited commanding officer of the Border Guards, Sea Border Guards, those who come under our command during the act of defense, and we communicated with them. We needed to find out how many personnel they had, what kind of weapons they had, and other stuff like that. There was even a situation when we got into their office. There were 3 colonels of the border service, and Mikita Nattochi, the commander of 2nd Battalion of Azov Regiment, was sitting there, and he said, "Look guys, here is the plan. I will be your commander. I need data on your combat and personal military strength of the military unit, and other things like that." He received a response that sounded like, "Guys, you understand, we will give what you need now, but we won't be able to do anything with it until we get an order from above." Well, people just... I don't know, they treated our situation negligently. 1-2, commander's call sign. Ask him if he realizes that if something begins, no orders will reach you. So, as we are here now we need to solve all these things, but at that time they also somehow treated it negligently. In general, we traveled to all military units, so we would get all the info we needed. We created a list, what did we have and where it was located. And then, on the 23rd of February, I was sent to the headquarters of the amphibious defense. It was located at the airport of Mariupol. There was a colonel who commanded everything there, and operational representatives from each of the units who were constantly sitting there. I was an operational representative from Azov, someone was from the Border Guards, someone from the Coast Guard, and so on. On the 23rd of February, they sent me there, so I was with the commander of our unit. Basically, he has his own company and also had a rapid reaction force unit, which consists of 40 people who, if suddenly someone somewhere will land, meaning enemy, they will react and stop them. I arrived there on the morning of the 23rd. The whole night we were waiting for something to happen, and on the 24th at 4 a.m. there was a device that monitors aviation, and also there was this large monitor on which you could see the entire Sea of Azov, where which ships were at that exact moment. And to be honest, I don't remember exactly, but I think it departed from Yeisk along the shortest path towards Mariupol, towards us. 2 huge tankers, that is, a kind of cargo ships, and colonel. The commander, who was a colonel at that time, announced the alert. That's how it all started for me. We probably were one of the first people who found out that some kind of war has begun. But it was still not clear whether this was a war or just some kind of a maneuver. So yes, he announced the alert, gave the order to throw sea mines into the waters of the Sea of Azov, and in the same way, and ordered everyone to move to the staging area. After that, all the operatives gave a specific command, told what and how to act. What time it was, approximately. It was around 4:30 a.m., maybe even a little bit earlier. I gave the command to my unit, so after the first command, we must just leave our base and get to the staging area. Upon arrival, they all stop and wait for further instructions. The problem was that other operatives started panicking like crazy, because I won't reveal the identities of these people, but, for example, there was this female operative. I don't remember which unit she was from, but she panicked and said, "What should I do? And I don't know what to do." I gave her this look and told her to send everyone to the staging area. People were sitting there panicking, in absolute shock from the fact that it was a start of a real war. They weren't prepared for anything like that. Those were people who had never participated in real-life warfare before. So I started to somehow explain everything I knew to the people who were there. and helped in any way I could. Everyone moved to the staging area. It was around 9 a.m. Aviation and naval artillery began to work, very frequently targeting us. There were already some missile hits from naval artillery at this airport, and there was also information about aviation that were flying above us. During this time, I personally am not an expert in the field of Navy. I didn't know a lot about it back then, but later I started to read and do my research about this to understand how it works and what they were doing. The commander told us that the ships that were going towards us were kind of like huge tankers, and also they could have had some landing craft utility or something like that attached to them. So we didn't know for sure. They entered the Sea of Azov and simply maneuvered there, from left to right, back and forth, and we were waiting for them to land on one of the coasts. We were able to monitor where they were and where they were heading, and if necessary, we would inform the needed group in that location about what's going on and warn them about possible landing. In this case, if they would have land, we would have formed the defense. When at 9 a.m. aviation and naval artillery started shelling us, the colonel, who was the commander at that time, he just disappeared. After the naval artillery stopped shelling us, all the operatives left their working places and ran away somewhere. I just sat looking at my signalman and didn't understand what was going on. At that time, we already had a group chat with the guys from Azov. All the commanders were in this chat. There was no signal in the room where I was sitting, so I went outside and wrote a message in this chat. It was something like, "Everyone ran away somewhere, what should I do?" I think it was Redis who responded to that text with something like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm standing on the street, catching the signal." He told me to send everyone back to their workplaces. I got back to the command post, I took one of their walkie-talkies and started calling the commander, but he never answered. Walking down, I saw a dugout. I walked inside and saw all the operatives. They were just sitting there. I started reassuring them, explaining that everything was okay. The aircraft missile hit somewhere far away. The naval artillery did not hit us at all. And they all were just standing there with pale faces, being ready to die. I told them to go back to their workplaces. I explained that my guys are there on the battlefield. I need you as a specialist, so let's go back right now, because I need your knowledge to somehow coordinate my guys who are out there. As a result, not all of them came out, only the main ones. The guy who was a signalman, who was looking after the ships, and someone else, I replaced the commander and started to command. Around 2 or 3 p.m. this commander returned to his workplace, and by that time I was already quite exhausted. After all the things I have dealt with, I wasn't prepared for something like that. I had a little fight with him, told him to sit down and help. He sat down at the table and started to answer the phone calls. Also, for example, there was this woman who was in charge of aviation. As I was told, that day she was put in a car and taken away towards Zaporizhia. I said, okay, who do we have to replace her? I was told that we have no one. I asked, how did you let to take her away from here then? The answer was, well, she is a woman. I was in absolute shock. I sat realizing that Russians have Ils, Ilyushin, Il-76, Il-78, each of which might fit either a battalion or a company and 10 armored vehicles inside of it. I understood that I now have 40 people in that Rapid Reaction Force unit. Even if a company with 10 vehicles will land there, our guys won't be able to do anything. We can't monitor aviation. I made, together with other people, the decision that we would simply block the roads to the entrance to Mariupol, so we would not catch the Navy landing. We do not see the whole picture of the situation, so we blocked the road near the coast, so that the landing force could not pass through, and so we would have met them right at the entrance to Mariupol. In the same way, we got our people on the other road. The company was divided into 2 parts. We acted like this only because we did not have the access to observe where the troops could land, and this is how we watched what was happening in the sea, and if someone would have landed there, part of the company could have got there and get into the battle. Then I continued to command there and decided to send my Rapid Reaction Force unit to the airport, just to have at least some kind of defense, if something would have happened there. So they have set up the defense at the airport. My guys who arrived there helped me a lot. At that time I was in the battalion command, on the position of an operative, engaged in combat planning in the battalion. And before that, for those guys from the Rapid Reaction Force unit, I was their platoon leader. So yeah, I trusted them for 100%. They've put up defenses there and also helped me with planning, further actions and all this kind of stuff. When it was almost nighttime, this commander guy started to spread panic among everyone, saying that we should leave it here and go to Mariupol and other things like that. I said no, my commander ordered me to be at the airport, so I'm gonna be there until the end. After I said that, he thought about it and said, well, okay, I'll go outside for a smoke. He took his chief of staff with him, they went outside to smoke, I didn't pay attention at them at that time and was just continuing to mind my own business, and suddenly I needed to ask him something. I realized that 20 minutes have passed already and he still didn't come back. I thought that he's probably sitting in his office. In there, the command post and the office are in the same room, you just need to go through the door. I got into the office, looked around, but there was no one. I went to my guy and asked, where is he? Nobody knew anything, and suddenly someone told me from the walkie-talkie that commander is leaving the airport. I said to not let him out. The guys tell me, I can't, this is my commander. I told him that now I am in charge here, don't let anyone out, and he said that they had already left. After that, I called Redis, explained that the commander and his people had left. Redis said something like, it's not possible, he must have just gone to the unit to receive some orders or something like that. I said okay, then I'm waiting for further instruction and what to do. He told me to wait and that he will call back. 15 or 20 minutes later, I got a call from him. He said that this commander won't come back. I smiled and said, well, okay, I got it. What should I do now? He told me to leave with the units and go to Mariupol. I'm like, okay, but they left their stuff everywhere, all of their laptops, classified documents and everything. Redis said to pack it all up and take it with us. There were laptops, appliances, walkie-talkies, everything. We packed it all up and took it with us. That's how it all started for me. Yeah, that was my first day there. I didn't sleep at that command post for 2 days then. On February 25th, sometime in the morning, we have left from there. I arrived at the command post of the battalion. I was terribly sleep deprived. My brain wasn't functioning at all. And there, my friend with the call sign diplomat tells me, lie down, you have 3 hours of sleep. We'll have a fight soon. I'm like, are you serious? You know, I haven't slept for 2 days already, but anyway, fine. I took to the shower, came back, scrolled through the phone for a bit and fell asleep. I expected that I will have to wake up soon, that there would be some kind of fight or something like that. When I woke up, looked at the time and it was already almost lunchtime, like 11 a.m. or a little bit later. I asked what was the situation in general, and they told me it's kind of quiet for now. I opened Instagram and saw all those videos where our guys are already destroying columns of equipment, Bayraktars are already being taken down by us. Wow, I didn't expect that. I've never participated in a full-scale war myself. I assumed that maybe it's going to be like that, but I wasn't sure. On your Telegram channel you wrote a post saying, and just like always, we're still standing and fighting those hordes of useless soldiers still coming and coming, they are dying like dogs, I can even count their losses no more, we're continuing to hold the city. Those dogs are bombing civilians from artillery and aviation, the city is in absolute chaos. So is it true that their tactics were that they were just going forward without any logic in their actions? Yes, so basically, in my direction of the 2nd Battalion, the people there had no real warfare experience, and when we entrenched ourselves outside of the city, we still had some positions that were already equipped by that time and other things like that. I remember the very first combat. It was when Horus, Lev Pashko, was the commander of the 1st company of the 2nd Battalion at that time. They had about 5 tanks that were going toward them, and 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken, burned them. That is, so they caught on fire. And then, the remaining 2 tanks started to leave back. So yeah, this is the very first combat I remember. Also later they tried to somehow enter the city, but they were only getting destroyed. And if I'm not wrong, we even had no losses until mid-March. Then, either until March 8th or until March 18th, I don't remember the exact date, we had already destroyed a bunch of their equipment. You were just telling me about how differently every soldier was acting. Am I right about the fact that members of the Azov regiment were especially the most morally prepared ones for what happened? Probably yes, in such situations it all depends on the psychological factor itself and on your spirit for it. I don't know how to explain it, I'll try to do it in my own words somehow, so that people can understand. At that time we already had the concept of earners, people for whom army was just a job, they've been serving just for money, they have been paid extra for being on the second line. I don't remember how much, the usual salary of the National Guard employees was 14 or 13,000 hryvnias. And for being on the second line, you will be there, they're gonna pay you 6 or 8,000 more. And so, for example, border guards or some people from the armed forces of Ukraine just came there to work with the contract. They trained a little, prepared themselves, and were getting about 20,000 hryvnias for that. For Mariupol, 20,000 hryvnias was a decent salary, even higher for 5,000 than the average one. Well, there was such a concept, and there were quite a lot of such people. They just sat there, earned their money, but really were doing nothing. It got to the point that our sergeants had more knowledge than some captains in another unit. It mattered that we, in Azov, had real training, we had a certain mental state, and we were already participating in real warfare. In our case, in order to become a commander, you must have gone through a way from being a regular fighter to a commander. But in any case, when you were a regular fighter in Azov, you already had real combat experience. So this was something that mattered a lot. Guys, in this video we also have a social mission. We want to suggest you support fighters who were wounded and are currently going through treatments to come back to a normal and healthy life after Mariupol and operation in other locations of the front line. It is also important to support the families of those heroes who unfortunately did not live up to this day, who died in this war, giving away their lives for the future of Ukraine. Bank account details of the Azov patronage service are in the description of this video. Do you truly enjoy military life, or is this a forced career path because you are from Mariupol and most of your life included war in it? Because in one of your posts from your channel you wrote that you would also enjoy just to listen to music, sit and chill somewhere on a beach and to not be engaged in military life like most of regular people. On the one hand, I really like the fact that I constantly spend time with my friends, with my guys whom I have infinite respect for, who I love. We were constantly at the training grounds together. It's like some people go to barbecue together, but for us it's the same thing, to get together with the whole friend group, to shoot at the training grounds together. It's very cool, I truly liked it a lot, but the other side of this is that I had no personal life. I couldn't take off to go somewhere at any moment, because I had a lot of limits due to the fact that I am in the military. I had to be at training ground, I had to plan my vacation the way it won't have time when I should be at the training ground or on some other kind of training. But I was realizing what I was preparing for, that we had an ongoing war in our country and that for now I had to prepare and train, so if something happened, all of a sudden I would be able to protect my friends, my family, and therefore from Monday to Friday we had such rules. After 6 p.m. we could leave the territory of our military base. I was coming back home only on weekends, because the rest of the time I spent at the base and trained. If I would have go home any other day, I would not get enough sleep. Therefore, I gave myself up completely as a military man to this path. I don't remember what I wrote in my Telegram channel, but I remember that I had a video with my friends with a lot of short videos edited in one, and I wrote, "Is what I'm doing now worth losing all the happiness, all these emotions that I am now filming? What for am I doing all this now?" So yeah, this was the psychological question I asked myself. And also I wrote that if I had never got all of this constantly being taken away from me, I would not have appreciated it so much. And then, when a full-scale war started, after all this, I realized that it was absolutely worth it. All the time that I spent in the military, when I trained and studied, it was worth it to protect my family and my friends. And how did this big battle for Mariupol and the subsequent captivity changed you? Did you come out a different person, or you didn't change? I would say yes. I would say that I have grown a lot, mentally, psychologically as a person. My priorities in life have completely changed. Before Mariupol, before Azovstal, I was like a little crazy, maybe shameless at some points. I could act radically and stuff like that. Now I have become calmer. I talk less, yeah, very calm. I now have the feeling that I have already seen everything in this life. There is nothing that might surprise me anymore. You know, like the saying, whoever served in the army doesn't laugh in the circus. So yes, nothing will surprise me anymore. I have already seen everything in this life. That's why I'm like that now, constantly calm. I don't talk much. I think that I have become smarter. I began to treat things differently and began to perceive everything differently. And if more specifically, what exactly did you change? I won't be able to highlight anything specific. You can say that I used to live one day at a time. I never planned my future, but now I'm already starting to somehow plan things like I want to start a family, to have kids. Back then I was so strict about children because, well, it's not that I hate them, no, I just understand what a huge responsibility it is. Something needs to be invested in a child, to raise him And I was a military man. I had no enough time to spend with a child or a wife. Now this has changed. What did you do when the city was encircled? What was your role there? You told how it all started, what you did. Also, we've seen lots of videos of how you drove around the city, you constantly communicated with people. There are also videos in which you were in firing position. Tell me more about this. Okay, so I was an operative in the battalion. My task as a military man was to replace the chief of headquarters or of the battalion at certain moments. If there was no one around, I sat with the walkie-talkie, controlled the combats, connected some of the means there. My role was to sit at the command post, help the battalion commander and the chief of headquarters with planning and everything like that. And if they weren't there, I was sitting with the walkie-talkie to control the combats. These were my tasks as a soldier. Was it hard to manage the combats? Well, when you realize that your friends are there, it's very hard. When you need to send someone somewhere, it's beyond words. Yes, it's hard, but we had to act as we did. So nothing really changed in your responsibilities there after you got into the Azovstal? Relatively, yes. In fact, how to explain that? We had it all assigned there. Who, when, at what time does something. In my free time, when I didn't have any work or had work but I already finished it, I could have had some free time in the evening. At that time, I was driving around to help people around the city. That is, so I never just sat there doing nothing. So we were just driving around, observing at the situation. Yes, in general, how did it all happen? When the residential area in Mariupol was being shelled for the first time, I was just sitting at the command post, we were sitting in the basement. We heard many explosions, and the walls were literally shaking. I didn't even ask anymore anything. I just ran out, put on my body armor, a helmet, took an assault rifle. I went upstairs, there was a combat medic sitting there. I told him to come with me. We ran out of the building, we just ran through the streets, through the houses in that area where the shelling was. We were telling everyone to go down to the basements for safety. At that time, while I was running around there were already some missile hits in other areas of the city. I was running into the basements and explaining people how they should act. Man, listen to me. Bring all the warm clothes, blankets, water and food here. We should stay here for now. What's your name? Anya. Everything is fine. We are protecting you. Everything will be right, Anya. Don't cry. There were some apartments where people with disabilities lived. I remember one granny who is disabled, she couldn't walk. The neighbors who were running outside said that there was an old lady in the apartment. Her doors were shut, we couldn't get in to take her out. I knocked this door out with my shoulder, got into the apartment, saw the way she was lying there, all her windows were broken, she was so scared. By that time it was already very cold in the apartment and she was shaking. My friend and I found some clothes to dress her, we put some warm on her, she was wearing only her underwear, we put it on her pants, sweater, jacket, dressed her completely, and she said that she works very hard. I said it was okay and that I will carry her in my arms. I can't, it's hard. I picked her up in my arms, she grabbed me really hard, she was very afraid. When I let her down and she grabbed me very tightly again and asked, what will happen to us? I said, everything will be fine. I brought her to the basement. To the people warned that this granny was disabled and told them to watch her. And I said that I would bring some food to you later. There were many children around. I walked around all the basements, wrote down lists to where and how many children there were. Then I drove to the mall, bought some food and delivered it to all those kids and all other people. About food that I brought, it were mostly juices, chocolates, something that did not need to be cooked, cereal, some kind of bread, a lot of sweets. I took it all to the basements and I went in to check if people were taking care of that granny, everything was fine. Was this the most difficult moment for you during Mariupol, or there was something even worse? It was very hard. If I try to remember how it was, everywhere in any area where you stopped by, there were a lot of dead bodies right in the front and backyards of the buildings. Regular local people who were coming out of the basements during the day in order to cook some food for themselves using the bonfires, but a missile hit there. For example, if there were 20 people who were standing around one bonfire, they were all lying around dead, and locals were already just burning them right in the yards. It was the only way. They were doing themselves and putting up at least some kind of crosses and were doing some kind of signs with the name and information on that person who was buried there. And everywhere was like this. You'll go into any backyard, everywhere there are gonna be crosses or just the bodies covered with something. Everywhere there was a huge number of bodies, regular civilians who were dying from hits of artillery and aviation. Now when I think about this, I have already seen enough of it and got used to it. I start to react on it calmer, I didn't cry. I don't know why I got teary eyes right now, I just remember it all in my mind again. I was wilted. I was just sitting like this, digging very hard through my thoughts. I couldn't accept that something like this is real, and my guys constantly supported me there. Like, bro, we are here with you to the end, and that like, everything is gonna be fine. We will repel this attack. We will fight them off. Everything will be fine. You just need to survive it for now. You are a man, you can handle it. And this helped me to believe and realize, yeah, we can handle it. I've read some of your posts in the Telegram channel which represented your mood and spirit. You constantly been sharing a positive message saying that we will repel them, destroy them and so on. First of all, I was truly believed in this. It was just a fact, to be honest. We were repelling, we were destroying them. It was wrong to share negativity into society. It wasn't even some kind of positive affirmations. It was just the facts as they are. At that time, in addition to the fact that a lot of civilians were dying and our city was simply being burned to the ground, we repelled all attacks. We destroyed everyone, all the infantry, all the equipment that drove in there. It was just a statement of facts. Why exactly did they burn down the city? They couldn't just take you in regular combats? Yes, how can I explain this? Urban combat, when they attack the city, it is very hard, and they did not have enough training for this, but we had it. And so they just been acting according to the same tactics, according to the same book, with which they worked in the Chechen Republic and other places. They chose a tactic that they used everywhere, a scorched earth tactic. They drove up to the city, the buildings were there. At that time, there was a huge shopping center, sports city and metro. They burned them down, they drove there and entrenched there. They have been burning something down, driving there, entrenching, and then they've been doing it all over again and again. All the buildings were demolished by aircraft, tanks, everything was burned down to the ground, and only after that they were able to go further. They couldn't move forward any other way. How does it feel to understand psychologically that you are constantly being squeezed, the forces are unequal, you do not have aviation, there are not enough weapons to match the enemy? You know, I won't be able to fully describe it psychologically. I almost didn't participate on any combat positions other guys were doing it. I was at the command post. It was very hard. How to explain? We are warriors. When someone was shelled, for them it is... I have already said that those people who took part in the war are no longer ordinary people. We've already changed on psychological and physiological levels. There, if someone was shelled, they laughed about it. Like, it's cool. There was a missile hit from a tank. But they're alive. It's kind of fun. Also, we didn't have time to rest. For example, before a full-scale war, we were at the front line sometimes. You served there for some time and then you had time to rest for a week or so. But in Mariupol we had terrifying combats every day, truly terrifying. Every day they fire at you from tanks, from aircraft, and there was no time to rest. I have a very good friend of mine. His call sign is Drone. At that time, he was already the chief sergeant of the company. I don't remember what position he commanded. He just came to the command post one of the days and just sat there like that. I tried to talk to him, ask him what happened. He told me about everything that was happening there on the front line, and I tried to support him. I said stuff like, "Come on, brother, everything will be fine, we will get through this." So basically there always were mood and spirits swing. When we completed some tasks, destroyed equipment, then we were happy. Then some problem appeared, everyone was wilted. Therefore, yes, there was also this kind of instability and it was very difficult psychologically. Can you tell how regular civilians been acting? Because I spoke to one of my friends who was a soccer player and he told me about the moment when some people were robbing a store, they were stealing some TVs, and it was crazy because we are in such a global crisis, we have war in our country and no one will need this TV later. What do you think about this? Technically, even before the war, Mariupol was divided in two parts by areas, pro-Ukrainian one and pro-Russian one. In those areas where pro-Ukrainian people lived, when we drove past the shopping center, everyone stood in a huge queue in front of the entrance. There was order and peace everywhere, no one been breaking anything, there were no looters. When we drove by another area where pro-Russian people lived, all the shops were completely looted. They were coming inside the shopping center through the windows and stole everything that was there. Half of the city was fully robbed. The police did not have the means or the strength to somehow regulate it. I also heard this story that after events in Mariupol, those people from Azov regiment who were not in Mariupol took off their chevrons and said that Azov is the people who are in Azovstal, those who got through Mariupol. I haven't heard it, but in the Telegram channels where the Azov members and other guys were, at some points discussions began about who deserves to wear the Azov chevron and who is not. Well, it probably was said in this context. Well, probably yes. When I read it for the first time, I laughed. I don't remember if I wrote something about it then, but we discussed this topic with our guys, and my opinion is that if you were given the chevron of Azov earlier, then you deserve to wear it anyway. Listen, did you want this publicity that you have now? Probably not, but now it does help a lot. I can use this public attention to help my mates from the regiment, other people, children. I share posts with fundraisers. The attention itself, the very fact that people know and recognize me. I don't like it. I don't like this attention. When I walk, everyone looks at me. Well, but in the case of helping someone, that really helps. For example, I can help someone to raise money for a car that they need on the front line, for drones or some other kind of help. Yes, from this perspective, it's cool. You started a Telegram channel at the start of the war. Why? There is such a thing as network-centric warfare. At the moment when we were in Mariupol and the war began, Telegram channels appeared. I think that they were created either by the Russian special services or by people who were bribed. There was a lot of false information in these channels in order to spread panic in the city. For example, as in Kyiv, when they were starting to shell in and people ran to buy gas, huge traffic appeared. When there is panic in the city, it is very bad for the soldiers, and in order to reduce this panic, I created this channel so I could confirm or refute various information there. How did it blow up so much? I saw that you asked people to post videos from the city to tag you, and then they got more and more of those people. Am I right? I'm not sure, I don't really remember which videos I asked to share, but I know that at that time I had about 8,000 followers on Instagram. Most of them were some of my friends from Mariupol, and when I started posting different information, I've gained a lot of new followers. Probably because people started to talk about the fact that there is this guy David, he is from Azov, and he confirms or refutes the info, and people wanted to read the truth. Well, after that, the Telegram channel began to get more followers as well. On Instagram I began to edit some videos from our combats, and they began to blow up in the media with captions like Azov destroys Russians and so on. That is, the thing is that these are such unique shots that are not available anywhere in the world now. This is the first war with real footage from the front line, with videos in which tanks are 20 meters away from the operator. And this is how people were keeping finding my Instagram. In my profile caption there is a link to my Telegram channel, and so the number of subscribers began to grow on both accounts. At some point the Russians started working on you. They started creating some fake channels, articles started to show you saying that you are a Nazi, a drug dealer, a Satanist. When did this started? It was already the middle of the siege of Mariupol. A lot of my videos were watched by Russians, and they had a huge dissonance. On TV and news, they were told the Russians are destroying Azov, that Mariupol is almost captured, that in a week the city will be theirs. And then they saw my videos on Instagram and Telegram, and suddenly it turned out that everything was not as they were shown in the news. At first they tried to block my account, so they did create some attacks with fake accounts. They also found out my phone number and began to make attacks. I received a bunch of messages, and in Telegram channels they started to spotlight me in a bad way. They said stuff like, oh, he's a drug dealer. Well, why did talk about a drug dealer in the first place? It's because I was often asked why I was a chemist, and sometimes I was too lazy to explain. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah, it takes some time, so sometimes I just joke that I did great in chemistry class in school. Before I became a public person, I joked a lot, but now I choose my words carefully, because some people take everything seriously. Well, earlier, when I was asked some questions that I didn't want to answer, I could answer with some kind of joke, with sarcasm, and it was kind of dark humor. So someone once asked me why I was the chemist. I answered just because I cooked math at school. Well, this is obviously just a joke. I personally think that 90% of people would have understood that this was a joke. But after that, Russians started talking about the fact that I'm selling drugs, that I'm cooking drugs, that I'm a hero in Ukraine, but in fact I'm a drug dealer and serial killer. They also started to say that I am a Satanist because I have a tattoo of a goat head and sheep's horns all over my back. This is Baphomet. And for them, this is a sign of Satanism. Although, in fact, it is a pagan god of fertility, but they say that this is Satan. And also, you have a video where you are holding an Orthodox icon, and this topic has started to spread a lot. Well, an Orthodox icon about that, I don't know, it wasn't disrespecting the religion or anything like that. I was just hanging out with my friends then. Everyone knows my thoughts on the idea of religion. You are an atheist? Well, atheism is also a belief. I do not consider myself a part of any religion. I respect all religions. I have friends who are Jew, Orthodox, Muslim. I always told people that if it helps them, then let themselves continue to believe. It's cool. But I don't need to impose this. I have my own opinion, and since I treat you with respect, show some respect for me and for my worldview. On that day, we were just celebrating someone's birthday, renting a house, and there were a lot of icons inside the house. But I said, no guys, I can't stop myself, and I took this icon and just had some fun. I don't turn it over, I didn't break it, I just held it in my hands. Then I even wrote a caption for this video. Christians, you go guys. That is, it was even like a support, you know. Okay, a little earlier you said that there are no atheists in the trenches. Did you start to believe in God, or maybe you tried to find some other faith while you were encircled on Azovstal? These are not my words, this is what people said online. They think that everyone believes in something, but I'm quite the opposite. For me, relying on God or something like that, at a critical moment is a weakness. I hate weaknesses. That's why I didn't believe in God, even while I was in the trenches in Mariupol. I feel better if I can handle anything just with myself and not rely on some supreme being. On your Telegram channel you kept talking about the information that was spreading about Ramzan Kadyrov being ready to pay $500,000 for your head. How did you find that out? Was it true? I'm not sure if that was true, but it was on the Russian Telegram channel, as far as I know, also was posted on the official channel of Ramzan Kadyrov. He wrote there that he would pay $500,000 for any of the battalion commanders. Well, there were some photos in this post of these people whom he was looking for. There was a photo of Chile, someone else, and my photo. Well, under for mine there was a caption written that he's gonna pay $500,000 for my head. Of course, I laughed about it. Was it nice or creepy? No, it wasn't creepy. Why would it be creepy? We were in Mariupol, there you might be... What would I be afraid of? Nothing will be worse than death. So no, it wasn't creepy. But it didn't feel nice or anything. It was just funny, I took it as a joke. What started all the attention about you threatening Kadyrov to cut off the head of his mother and do bad things to his sisters? I won't even quote what it was saying. Russian propaganda did spread this theme very actively during the time when you were in the captivity. They were saying that now is the time, they will finally deal with him. He will pay off everything he said about Kadyrov and his family. As a man, I consider this as absolute derogation, and I would never let myself to talk about someone's mother or daughters like that. If one of my subordinates did anything like that, if are speaking army language, I would fuck them up. I would never in my life say anything like that. It just happened because I became against some publicity and people wanted to hype by using my character. They've created a fake Telegram channel with the same name as mine and posted a post pretending that it was written by me, so that it looked like I addressed it to Kadyrov, saying stuff like, "You're a dog, I will rape your daughters and cut off your mother's head." Well, the thing is, I'm a literate person, I write without any grammatical mistakes and I know how to use punctuation correctly, while that post was written as if by some kid wrote it, a very poorly written text. Well, this post itself looked obviously edited and fake. It was just a screenshot of the message on which you couldn't even see that it was written on my channel. I took a screenshot of this message and posted it on my channel, laughed and said that I would never in my life say anything like that. Well, anyway, then I deleted this post so that this topic would not be shared even more in other Russian groups. Well, afterwards, when I was already in the Russian captivity, they did some of their own research and said that yeah, it was clear that this is a fake message, and they said that they had no more questions for me in regarding that situation. So it was like, you sat down with them, analyzed it, did you give them any proof that it was a fake? Yes, but it went a little different. The people with whom I talked there said that, dude, you look like a normal, smart, educated person and this is strange. I told them, let's open the Telegram now, and in 5 minutes I'll show you how to make such a fake. I made a channel for the demonstration, wrote a message, and they saw that it really looked exactly like the one where I threatened Kadyrov. Did they ever start conflicts regarding the things you wrote about in your channel? Because you wrote a lot about Russian army stuff like "don't come to our land, we will liquidate you anyway" and other statements like that. I would say no. There were no conflicts caused by anything I said in my Telegram channel. Those people whom I talked to, they never told me anything about that. It was 50-50. Some spoke negatively about my character. Someone said that I am a true warrior, but there were no cases of some terrible negativity caused by my publicity. Weren't you afraid at the moment when you were already taken away in captivity that you would really be brought to Ramzan Kadyrov and that you would have to talk to him and explain everything? When I was in captivity, for some reason I was sure that if they would take me to Ramzan Kadyrov, we would have dialogue and sort out whether it was true or not. I would have been able to argue and prove that I never said anything like that about his family. I did notice that you often bring up the topic of Ichkeria. I saw that you even had a patch with their flag before the war. Why is the topic being so important to you? You know, someone might get sentimental from movies like Khatiko, but I get goosebumps when I see how soldiers show their character and their strength. When there was a war between Russia and Chechen Republic, the Russians attacked a small country in the same way as they did it now with us, and the Chechens resisted very worthily. As far as I know, at that time 95% of their men went to fight for their country, which is why I have such great respect for the Chechen people who fought against Russia. Those are great people who defend their country, their nation. Even guys as young as 15 years old fought, so I always treated these soldiers with respect. In order to overcome Russian propaganda, we asked David to explain the meanings of his tattoos, because there is a lot of provocation on this matter. Russian propaganda often says that I have an eagle, which associates with Nazism, tattooed on my neck, but in reality is just a raven, which is a symbol of wisdom and developed intellect. I have 9 circles of hell tattooed on my hands. Here they are in order: the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and on the back, that's the 9th one. This scenario is from Dante's book Divine Comedy, where he described those 9 circles of hell. When I read this book, I really liked his idea that for a certain sin you get into one of the circles of hell. Which circle is Mariupol? All 9 of them, yeah. Here is just an abstraction. These stripes do not mean anything. This one says no fear, that one says love. This is just a dagger. Yeah, that's it. I don't have any Nazi symbols and I don't have any swastikas on my body. This cross on your hand, is that straight edge? The people who do not consume any alcohol or drugs, the direct path. So that means you wear straight edge? Yes, I was a part of straight edge in the past. And now? Now I'm not. I want to read out one of the Russian propaganda articles, quote, "On the hands, Nazi symbols and the motto of the Buchenwald concentration camp, Jeden das Seine, to each his own. A goat's head was flaunted all over the bag. We have already talked about your bag, but what about Buchenwald?" I don't know where and what they saw because I don't have any tattoos mentioning Buchenwald. Tell me what's on your legs, we won't show them now. On my legs I have a tattoo with the image of the Virgin Maria and Jesus, and the phrase of King Leonid, "Kill everyone, take everything away," a spider web, another goat's head, and some tiny tattoos with absolutely no meaning. If you are a non-believer, why do you have a tattoo with Orthodox images? Mostly it's just irony. Here I am, a non-believer, and there is the irony. It's like drawing a tree on a piece of paper. Same thing. When you were coming out of Azovstal, I understand that you programmed yourself in such a way that after Azovstal you won't be afraid of anything, that the subsequent events are no longer a very difficult period in your life, right? During the siege of Mariupol and Azovstal I have already experienced all fears possible. I no longer have anything to be afraid of. I was completely ready to die. It was difficult to contain my emotions. I tried to do it, only not to frame my mates, who were also coming out of the Azovstal, but we went out only for the sake of all the wounded, who were with us. But at the same time I wanted to come out from there with honor. They tried to mentally push me, but I wanted to stay with honor. Can you tell me, when did you realize that it was necessary to go to Azovstal, and how did it feel to that you are going to be stuck in such a limited area? The command post was already at Azovstal. where Redis was sitting. The left coast is where the 1st Battalion stood. People with combat experience fought against them. In my opinion, it was much more difficult for them to be there than on our direction. They were constantly pressed, and by the end of Mariupol they also entrenched themselves on Azovstal, because they were pushed out of the area where they were standing before. We were separated. There was Azovstal, then there were Russians standing, and then, on the right coast, there were us. When the 36th Brigade surrendered, there were around 1,000 people there, approximately that many. And after that, all of those who were in their direction began to relocate their personnel and equipment to our direction. We realized that we could no longer handle this. The only option was to break through and to the Azovstal. It was planned in a couple of hours. We were told that we were going to break through to Azovstal at the last moment, because otherwise they would have simply crushed us there. Because we have already run out of anti-tank weapons, it would be very difficult to hold up the defense. We did split in 2 groups. One group which was driving on vehicles, the second group which was going by foot. I ended up in the group that driving. What was going on? We got inside the vehicles and we stood there as if we were going to break out of the city. Drones were already flying over us then, and artillery was already aiming at us. But as we were standing on a cliff and all their missiles flew over, they were simply falling into the sea. We got into the vehicles, started driving along the road that leads to the exit from the city, but we did turn in one place, and so we started driving towards the Azovstal. While we were driving, they were shooting at us with everything they had, artillery, mortars and everything else. When we had already entered the territory of our enemy, I was going inside of an armored car and RPG hit us, but everything was okay. It didn't break through. But as it was night and we were driving with the headlights off, and our driver was blinded by this flash, he said, "Guys, I can't see anything." The guy who was sitting in the front seat took the steering wheel and steered the car further. While driving, at some point I raised my eyes and ATGM flew right past us. I mean, the combat was really horrendous. When we were already almost there, luminous shells began to be fired from mortars, so we could see the road and we kept driving. I am local, I know the city. There were only few people who knew it that well. We drove somewhere the wrong way, got stuck in a swamp. I looked out of the car window and could not understand where we were. We gave the command that we would get out of the car and take up all-round defense. And when I got out, I immediately realized that I have already been to this place, and we were right in front of Azovstal. In 200 meters there was already a bridge that led there. And so, after that, I said that I knew where we were, gathered everyone and began to move by foot to that bridge. When we approached the bridge, I looked in front of me. Azovstal was completely visible. Everything was glowing in the background. It was a moment like some kind of a movie scene. It was fired upon with absolutely everything that the enemy had. They fired not aiming, but with rapid fire. These were hailstones, aviation, artillery, naval artillery. Everything exploded there like fireworks. At that moment, I just lowered my hands like that and did not understand if we have to go there or what do we need to do. I did not understand how we could get inside. At that moment, while I was thinking what to do, a part of our column, which did not get stuck in the swamp, arrived. I said to cross the bridge and move towards the Azovstal. When we went there, it was visible where you can run only during flashes from mortars. For understanding, Azovstal is huge, it is like a small European town. Once we got there, we didn't know where to go, because we have never been there. And the workers of the facility traveled through it on buses. It is difficult to walk around this territory. It was around 5 a.m. I yelled to everyone to look for the shelter and hide there. Then I fell and injured my leg, torn ligaments, or something like that. I barely made it to some building, it didn't have a roof. I got inside, sat down, leaned my head against the wall like that. The guys started running inside as well. I said that we would wait and stay there for now. I decided to go inside the building and look around for a better place to hide. There was a basement, but the whole floor was already flooded. But on the downhill that led into the basement there was a huge concrete slab, which was supported by rails, and it seemed like a decent place to hide under it. I told guys about it, there were about 20 of us. Since it was already morning, somewhere around 7 a.m., it was already light, and the Russians raised their drones and the rest of their shit into the sky. They started to shoot accurately, so we planned to wait until night, and when it got dark, to go out and find where we should go, since we didn't know almost anything about the place. We took out a tablet with a map on it. There was no internet then, so we could only guess where exactly we were. There was a network, but at that moment our walking group had not yet arrived at Azovstal. We didn't have anyone to guide us. So we looked at the tablet where we are. Later it turned out that we were wrong. One of the guys said he saw some kind of a bunker in a kilometer away from us, but to run a whole kilometer under such rapid shelling, you understand, therefore we waited for the night. Somewhere in the middle of the day there was a missile hit right into the place where we were hiding. Everyone had a shell shock, everything was covered in dust, no one understood what happened, our ears were ringing. It was exactly a direct hit on us, but everyone survived. After that I said, guys, we need to do something. We can't sit here anymore. We need to run to look for shelter. Due to the fact that I twisted my leg in the morning, by the lunchtime I could no longer get it out of my shoe, it was so swollen. And another guy who was with us had some kind of a leg injury as well. I was asked how we will run if we have leg injuries. I said, I don't know, but we will run somehow. We can't sit here no more. We ran out about 50 meters and then suddenly someone waved at us from the window. It was our guys. We were like, what do you mean? Who is this? The guys told us to get inside. We ran and asked where should we go to get into the bomb shelter, because from what we saw in the map we had to run a kilometer. We were told that there was a shelter in 60 meters from there. There was a bridge, it was heavily concreted. We needed to get there and we would have been taken from there. We ran under this bridge. Everyone sat down. We were completely black covered in dirt, as if we had gone through hell. We were sitting there just looking at the floor. No one was even talking. Everyone was just trying to accept the fact that we've got through it. After that, I was taken with all the injured people. I went there with the doctors because I could no longer get my foot out of my boot. They applied some kind of cooling spray and said that until the swelling went down, we won't be able to find out what happened with my leg. You were there with the wounded people. I heard that there was almost no medicine and people were withering right before your eyes. The fact that I was with the wounded for some time hit me very hard mentally. All the people there were exhausting, drooping. There were a lot of amputees. When I was walking in this place, I plunged into a bubble of apathy. There were people laying with ostomy systems. Someone was groaning in pain. I was terribly affected by seeing all of it. It was hard mentally. I've been there for a week and a half. I waited until my swelling went down a little. Finally, I was able to get my foot out of my shoe. They gave me some ointments. I smeared my leg with it and my swelling went down. I said, that's it. I no longer can stay here. And I left to stay with my guys. After a week or two, I left to be on a command post. Tell us about the world of Azovstal itself. How did it look inside? You said that you got inside of it. How did you live there? How the things worked there? How did you move along the territory? It's impossible to describe with words. I can only tell something in general. It was very hard. We were doing our best to survive. The basements we were in, so basically I had my command post in the basement, which was a 4 or 5 floors underground. It was very cold there. When we broke through to get inside of the Azovstal, we took a minimum amount of stuff, and I didn't have any jacket, I only had a fleece. When I went down to this basement, it was so cold there that steam was coming out of my mouth. We were making bonfires there. I found myself a metal vest jacket that probably belonged to some local worker before and walked around wearing it. I don't know how to fully explain what we went through. It was just like some kind of a fantasy movie, a movie where people live somewhere in the dungeon. And how was the communication there? It was huge catacombs there. It was possible to go from one basement to another, but not every basement could be entered in this way. Some passages were flooded since the plant was no longer functioning, pumps were not pumping out water, so some basements were already flooded. It was no longer possible to pass through them. We studied these catacombs, where to go, how and where to get out. These were some places where, in order to get to the position, the only way was to go on the outside. I don't know how to describe it, and what else to tell. It was very hard. And what about food? You stayed there for a very long time. What did you eat all that time? I heard that civilians came and usually brought something with them, but then they ate the food you had. Not exactly, I don't know for sure, I wasn't working with civilians there. Mostly the regimental command was doing that. Before I arrived at Azovstal, we were already in Mariupol. When we were on the right bank, my diet was instant noodles and Snickers. There was no normal food left. When we arrived at Azovstal, as far as I remember, at the command post were 350 people. We ate 7 kilograms of porridge and can of stew. It was in a big pot where some kind of stew was cooked, and it was divided among 350 people. This is how we ate. You told me that there was this kind of activity, like walking around Azovstal to search for some food. Yeah, to go loot. To loot is the term from cybersport, am I right? Yeah, it means something like to collect things. There were collapsed basements, there were some refrigerator that had been bombed and something else. And when you walked along Azovstal, you could find some leftovers, canned food, stuff like that, somewhere in collapsed basements. There were special groups that went looting. They found some food and brought everything to a common place. This was the food that were left at the plant before. No, it was the food that we brought there. It was just that this food was at the basements that were collapsed already. We had some trucks with meat there, where there were refrigerators, they were on the street, but missiles have already hit them, they were bombed. But inside there was some food that could still be consumed. It was collected and brought. But it was still risky, wasn't it? Of course, it was always dangerous to go out there. Artillery, aviation, naval artillery was constantly working. There were no such moments that there were no missile hits. It was 24/7. You said that you were tired of eating Snickers and Bounty there. Yeah, when I was still in Mariupol, where I was, the only food we had were sweets, Snickers, Bounty, stuff like that, instant noodles, and that was it. So you ate those noodles, and after you ate a Snickers. It was awful eating only that every time. I sat looking at this Bounty and just hated it. Who organized such things, and who and where should be standing, what rotation and so on? Because you said that this is such a big place. How did you control it? How did you keep the perimeter? At Azovstal there was Redis, the commander, and there were some battalion commanders. They received the task of which their front line was, and then battalion commanders and company commanders decided how they would locate their people there. And what? People stood on their positions day and night and tried not to let anyone? They went to their positions with squads. For example, a department consisted of 10 people. When they arrived to their position, they stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and then they were replaced by another department. Missile hits from aviation were often at night, or it was constant. Aviation was constantly bombing us, but the strategic bombers that can carry up to 10 tons of explosive, they were only working at night, at around 2 to 4 a.m. We were waking up every night. There was a command, I don't remember which one exactly, mass alarm or something like that. It meant that these bombers were flying towards us. Everyone had to put on protective equipment, armor, helmets, and get ready. So we all woke up every night in the middle of the night, put on armor and helmet, and basically just sat down and waited. Prior to this, these bombers collapsed our 3 basements. In one basement 60 people died, in the other many also died. You just sat there in the middle of the night and waited for you to be hit and be buried in the basement. When there were missile hits far away, either way, even in that basement, which was 5 floors underground, the walls were shaking. In your Telegram channel, you are constantly recommending people different books. I understand that during the time you were in the captivity, you managed to read. How many and what books did you read? I won't be able to list everything. I've read about 20 books there. While I was sitting there in single cell, I sat there for about a month, and there was a library, they brought me books. And from what I remember, I've read James Rollins, Rainer, Agatha Christie, Hemingway, Mark Twain, a lot of things in general. Oh, also they brought me Nietzsche. This is my favorite book, actually. When they brought it to me, I was like, wow, amazing. I've read it 3 or 4 times. It's just that type of book that you can't just read. It must be studied. Every time when I was rereading it, I tried to remember something, to remember some phrases. I've been reading a lot there. Look, you are breaking stereotypes, because usually military people don't read much, right? I don't know who came up with such stereotypes. In fact, military men need to read and study a lot, for example, military statutes and stuff like that. In order to understand something, military men must first of all read and not train. It can be said that the younger generation does not read much. The younger generation? What age are you talking about? From 15 to 16 up to 25-year-olds. It seems to me that the problem is that the younger generation now can't find something that will be interesting for them. When I was about 16, I was told to read books. I've tried to read some kind of adventure or fantasy. I read, and for me it was like I read 10 pages and didn't remember anything. It was not interesting for me. But I love different quotes. I constantly wrote something out for myself. And someone told me that there is that cool book of Nietzsche. It is small, just contains aphorisms. Try it. Read it. You'll like it. It was suggested to me by someone at school, I think. thing. I started reading, I got into philosophy, and after that I started reading philosophy and psychology. You just need to find something that will be of interest to each person. My opinion, children now, for example, when I was a kid, I was told that if I would behave badly, I would have to sit down and read a book as a punishment, you know. Well, it's obvious that if parents scare you with this, that reading books is a punishment, then children will perceive books like, ew, I will better watch a movie. But in fact, when you read, your brain creates a feeling as if you yourself are in a movie. It creates all these images in your mind, and it comes out as if you are watching a movie while you read. Therefore, I advise to read at least some small books, such as Mark Twain. It is easy reading, and you'll see if you like it or not. I'm sure many will like it. How did you take the information that there will be no end of blockade? I don't know, some people understood it, some people didn't, someone had some hopes. We were constantly told that, guys, another week, 2 more weeks, and we will release you. At some point, I already understood that there would be no end of blockade. How did I take it? To be honest, until the last moment, I had a feeling that everything would be fine. I don't know why. I thought that maybe somehow they will come to an agreement on a political level or something else. Maybe that an extraction would be possible. I already understood that there is no chance of an end of blockade, and I hoped for an extraction, that they would let us out. So it was different for everyone. Someone was depressed, someone was okay. I won't say that there was some kind of despondency. We already understood what we were up to. All of Ukraine constantly raised this topic to the whole world. Even at Eurovision, Kalush performed and said, "Free Azov." What was your reaction to that then? And in general, how important was it? You posted a touching letter from a little boy who wrote to you, so I understand that many people wrote you words of support. I don't know, words are just words and posts are just posts. Yes, when they said it, it was nice, they drew the attention of the world, but practically from the fact that they said it, nothing had changed with us. It was still not clear what would happen. Yes, we were pleased that they said this. Immediately, what is Azovstal became a top search on Google and everyone paid attention to us, but as far as I know, it didn't affect in any way. How did you personally accept the fact that you need to leave and go straight into the hands of the Russians? Or the order may not be discussed? Technically, yes, the order is not to be discussed. I just didn't understand what would happen next. We were promised mountains of gold, that the Red Cross would work with us, that everything would be according to the Geneva Conventions. That you will have internet, yes, even a connection with relatives and stuff like that. For some reason, I didn't believe this, as I know Russians never adhered there. As far as I know, Russians never adhered to any agreements, and therefore I didn't believe in this one as well. I just didn't know what would happen, and therefore I was so neutral. I didn't understand what would happen next. We just had an order, everyone goes out. I obeyed the order. There was such a moment in Azovstal when Putin gave an order not to shoot at you, but said that a fly should not fly past you. What really happened then? It was just window dressing. They couldn't seize, they couldn't even get on the territory of Azovstal. And as they did before, they wrote everything, just a week or two and Mariupol is ours. Then again, then another week, and so for 3 months they could not seize Mariupol. And it turned out that we closed ourselves at Azovstal, and they already needed to demonstrate their alleged victory, to show their strength, to say that they captured Mariupol. But how can they capture Mariupol if Azovstal is also a part of Mariupol? It's even, in fact, a whole town of Mariupol. And so Putin started such a game in the media that that's it, we will not seize Azovstal. Like, I don't give such an order, just watch that no one comes out of there. Although the shellings never stopped there, it was only for the media picture to show that they were in control of everything, although they weren't. What are the main reasons, in your opinion, that you were able to hold on for so long at Azovstal, even when you were completely surrounded without the necessary ammunition and with incredible superiority of the enemy? It's all thanks to the guys who held the line, the warriors, thanks to the guys who were on positions there. Thanks to this we held on. And thanks to the command of Redis, I gave him credit, him and the rest of the command staff, who planned everything very well, everything that we were trained for what we studied and prepared for. We used all this knowledge and skills. We had decent planning and decent guys for the defense. How did Russians enter the territory of Azovstal for the first time? We agreed with them to let the civilians out, that someone from our side will pick them up and take all the civilians out. And, as far as I remember, Redis was negotiating with the man who was from the Russian side. He said about the road where we released them. And the man from the Russian side said, no, this road won't be the one to do it. Only other road where they wanted to do it. And it was mined. They said that only there they would let civilians through. They started to say that it had been planned for a very long time. They started to blame us, that allegedly we did not want to let civilians out. They said that they would let them through only on that road that they told us about, but it had to be demined. They demined the road, we released civilians from there, and then they began to enter through this passage. That is, they did it only for their own reasons. Russian propaganda constantly made Azov look like the greatest evil in the history of mankind. Did you understand for yourself how you were released after all of this? You were right inside their hands and then they released you. In my opinion, Putin just wants negotiations, to end it all somehow. When I was in Russian jail, there were rumors that Putin wanted negotiations with Zelensky, that they were ready to sit down and negotiate, but Zelensky refused. It seems to me that it was something like a gesture of goodwill in order to start negotiations, in my opinion. David, I want to thank you for this interview. Thank you from all of us for the defeat in Mariupol, because you really took a huge fall on yourselves. We were all praying for you to stay alive, and we were very glad you are alive. I would like to wish you some personal growth, progress, and that we all will be witnessing our victory. Thank you for the interview. I would also like to remind you that there are still a lot of warriors in the Russian captivity, and the war continues so that no one forgets that we still have a lot of work ahead of us.